Hi, Jeff. I just left Lot 032 where I'm going back in just a few minutes. But I'm gonna watch the Zoom meeting on my phone. They're at about 180 feet drilling the well. They don't have water yet. So
I thought you were supposed to be on vacation.
next week.
Oh, next week.
Yeah. Yeah, next week.
Okay. Where are you going?
Big Bend National Park in
Ch-
Texas.
Texas. Okay.
Yes. But we're going for the national park, not for the state of Texas. So, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, yes. Um, so, um, it's our 30th wedding anniversary.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank
Did,
you.
did your
So,
husband tell you that we ran into him at the flower show a month
yes,
ago? Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It's funny. He really doesn't recognize people, and he keeps a pretty low profile. So,
That's what he said.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So, what did you think of Costa Rica?
I enjoyed it. It was a little different than I thought.
Uh-huh.
It was drier than I thought.
You recording in progress. Hang on one second. Big co-host. Uh, well, I know what I'll do. Were you in Guanacaste?
No, we were in Cocoa.
Oh,
You
in
know,
Coco, yes. Okay, that's in Guanacaste. Yeah,
oh,
and that's a
okay.
drier area of
Yeah.
the country. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, there were grass fires while we were there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Well,
fascinating. Yeah.
and then we went to, what's the big lake region? Um,
Arenal?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Arsenal without the S. Okay.
Right. Yes.
And then we went to, the cloud forest
Uh-huh.
area,
Monteverde, probably. Yes.
probably,
Yes.
and then back to the capital.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, those two areas, Arenal and Monteverde, were probably nicer than Coco, I would think.
Yeah, they
Uh,
were green. Yeah, they were
yeah.
greener. It
Yes.
was,
Yeah.
it was very windy in
Uh-huh.
both of them.
Okay.
But it
Yes.
was not, yeah, we enjoyed it. It was
Right.
fun.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Sometimes there's just a storm pattern that's going through, we didn't go to Arenal this year, but last year when we went, we were there and we got quite a bit of rain. So
Okay.
that happens sometimes. Okay.
Yeah, it was more a case where rain for a little bit and then no rain for a little bit, then rain for
Right.
a little bit, then no rain for a
Yes.
little bit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But it was fun. It was good.
Good. Good.
I wasn't that impressed with the capital.
Yeah, we don't even go. We fly in and out of Liberia, which is an airport that's closer to Cocoa Beach. And we haven't, I can't remember the last time we were in San Jose, maybe 10 years ago.
Well,
So
we flew into San Jose
yeah.
on American Airlines and then
Yeah.
took a puddle jumper up to Iberia,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and then which was nice
Good.
because
Good.
it flew so low.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I've had it. I think I don't need to go back to the capital.
Okay. Neither do I. So,
Yeah.
okay. We'll just wait for. So Elaine took the minutes at our last meeting. Um, she's not here, but she's just taken the minutes. I haven't had a minute to read them. So how about if we just table the minutes until the next meeting? Does that sound okay?
Fine with me.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. And there's Dominic. I'm gonna make Dominic. Dominic, I'm actually gonna make you the host.
Sounds good.
And then I'm gonna leave the meeting and then join on my phone and then drive back to Lot 032, which will only take me a minute. So
No problem.
you can go ahead and get started. Okay?
Okay, no
All
problem.
right.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank
you.
The host. Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. So just to confirm, are you all ready for me to start the page turn, or was there anything else that you as a subcommittee wanted to discuss first? Or ready
Nope,
to go?
just a page turn.
Yeah, nice. Let's
And
get this
then-
marathon ready.
And I've got a few comments on the specs. If you, towards the end, we can review those. There's nothing major.
Yep, great. I'm still in the process of reviewing the spec.
That's what I thought.
Done my yeah, thousands of pages is always fun. All right, so I was going to focus on the drawing specifically, and then the spec. I'm happy to answer questions on. Let's see here. So obviously we got the set off last week, and we're currently looking forward to getting pricing back. Today I'd like to focus really on changes. And then of course, as you guys have questions, feel free to ask away. I do have a hard stop at 3, and I'm hoping I can do this in 2 hours. So that's and maybe even less. So we'll see how we go. Just to quickly update you, there has been some architectural progress, obviously, from last Friday. So what I've rolled into this set is revisions, because it was a 75% set. So I think what I have for you today is, I would say, 80%. Right? There's been some follow-up cleanup. Always as things kind of get to that deadline, there's a few little oversights and cleanups and things. So I want to present to you a week's worth of revision, since that's 75%, at least for architectural. That does include an updated rendering on this first page. So this now represents the intent to finish the building without the rafter tails. So it's important that we represent the building correctly as things change. The front end of the code and ADA clearances has not changed. Let's jump straight to civil. So the existing conditions plan hasn't changed. So again, I'm going to kind of fly through things and really focus on changes. The site preparation plan has not changed. The limit of work has not changed greatly. Again, we are looking at a stockpile area central to the site, but not at the building footprint. So that's kind of like a site materials drop-off zone that is controlled with sediment control as well, I believe. So again, no big changes here. I guess, and during construction, obviously, we're going to have kind of this construction entrance, gravel roadway, and that helps keep Leverett Road clean, so that any kind of trucks entering or leaving the site will not kind of make a huge mess. So that's something that I know we all need to pay attention to once construction begins. So looking at site grading and drainage plan, again, the high level stormwater management of the site has not changed. This site plan that you're looking at now does now incorporate the revised turnaround, which we are currently reviewing with Conservation Commission. So we have an amendment to the NOI application with them that is what you see in front of you. I did want to highlight that we've been coordinating with our PV consultant and Bala electrical engineers that we will need to incorporate a future electrical storage ready concrete pad. So that's just a part that's to meet electrical code. So that's another component similar to the charging station for the parking lot. We do need to incorporate an additional concrete pad. So that was a miss for the 75, but we'll make sure to have that. It's small scope, but I just wanted to highlight that. Again, we will need Cape Cod berm against the predominantly along this entry drive to help control rainwater runoff and make sure that they go to the dedicated catch basins. We don't want that water running off into the wetland condition here. We did get confirmation from NGrid. I'm touching on utilities now, which is the next plan, but it is represented here that we got confirmation that we can use the nearest pole to tie into, which is great. I think that if we had to move to one of the other poles, that would be a little bit more complicated. We currently own duct bank for that as the base bid with an alternate for the overhead poles. Back to stormwater, we have a drip strip around most of the building. So this was landscape architect decision to unify kind of that edge condition. We don't necessarily need it everywhere, but I think it's a good idea just to control grasses, growing right up to the building edge. So we do have roof drains where I'm highlighting them here with my cursor. So we have some downspouts and they integrate into the drainage system that is at the perimeter of the building. So we have a couple of downspouts here. We have one here. This is a operable drip strip here. So that is connected to perf pipe and the drainage system, the underground drainage line. Similarly here as well. At this portion is the upturned roof. So we're cricketing the roof to allow water to divert to downspouts at either end. This is also a drip strip here. So all of that is connecting to this what is that? That's a drain hole, manhole. So, and then it goes into this water, this catchment basement here. Similarly, this upper catchment basin collects some of the water that's uphill into this basin and then discharges here at this riprap. This is an overflow in a spillway in case anything here fails. So that's kind of a fail safe for this system. Similarly here, if anything fails within this, we have a spillway here. And otherwise, we will continue the stormwater collection into this lower basement. Septic we can get to. We have specific drawings for that. So this is a raised septic system. If we go to utilities, again, so we've got a duct bank that comes in, leads all the way to the transformer. We also have telecom data. Currently shown going to the storage room. Last minute coordination with Marianne and her IT consultant, we decided that it might actually be easier to control wiring within the building if we get telecom coming into the director's office. So this is a portion of scope that we're going to revise for the 100%. That's pretty much it for utilities.
Are you gonna provide a spare in that duct bank?
Yeah, so we're providing two conduits, two 1 inch. We received clarification on what that section needs to be. I don't know if we have it in the set actually currently. I was coordinating with civil on actually, that might be in the electrical. That's why I might not have seen that section. It's a pretty accessible conduit line. It doesn't have to be in a conduit, in a concrete duct bank. So
But
we'll
it's
have the
only-
two.
It's a 1-inch line, I mean, 1-inch
Correct.
conduit.
I believe it is. Yes. Yep. And we have
Can you
two of those.
double check that? That seems pretty small. Okay.
Yeah, I think it is a 1-inch. What we did include, it was a direct coordination from the utility company, from the telecom company. I forget the name, Marianne. You may not be accessible to chime in here.
Okay, my only concern is we typically ran
Can you hear
at
me?
UMass 4-inch is what we usually use
4-inch, right?
for everything.
Got it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, Marianne, we can.
Yeah. I think it's a 2-inch, but I'm gonna look while we're
Yeah,
talking.
let me follow up.
Okay.
I may be
Okay.
completely misquoting.
All
but,
right. Okay.
Um,
All righty. Yes. All right. But I'll look and then I'll chime in again. Okay.
yeah, no
All right.
worries.
All right.
So yeah, Neil at CMS recommended that we have an additional, and I think that's appropriate. That way you're ready in case you have additional needs in the future.
Right.
We're pushing on NGrid, of Bala pushing on NGrid so that they can have their pricing for the overhead power lines, so that we can have that in hand when we evaluate the pricing for the 75%. So that's another kind of sidetrack that's happening while we're pricing the set related to utilities.
So I just checked Marianne again, and
Yep.
it is the broadband specifications. This is from our broadband committee, Jeff and
Yep.
Stephen. It does say at least a 1-inch conduit. But that's for one cord. And you have all of the specifications I sent. If Jeff thinks a 2-inch conduit is better,
Yep.
then that doesn't seem like that would be a huge price difference.
No, so I'll make that change, Jeff.
To
and
have
we'll-
a
yeah.
slightly bigger
Yeah, from your experience, let's do that. And we wouldn't want to be caught out with that. So I'll make sure to include that. So that's great. Then moving on to pavement markings. So this is a fairly simple plan that really just describes pavement markings and signage. All the lane markings and parking aisles are shown here, arrows, obviously. Required signage just to help direct traffic around, that's required. Accessible parking designations. We own two of the EV charging for this. I've asked, this didn't make it into the 75%, but I've asked that they omit that for the base bid. We don't need it, right? Because we're going to be charging ready. We don't need the signs yet. So I'm going to make sure that they get taken off. Yeah, so fairly straightforward on this one. Moving ahead. So now we get into details. I didn't want to get too bogged down on these. I'm happy to answer questions for those of you who have them for this. One thing that I'm going to ask Fuss and O'Neill about is this electric charging set. We need to be charging ready, right? So we do need this concrete pad. This is 2 feet deep. On a previous job, we installed one, but it was like 5 years ago, and I'm trying to remember how deep we ended up having to go. I know there's frost heave considerations, but it's substantial. So this is one kind of thing that I want to flag. It's a lot of concrete there for a charging station. It very well could be. I'm sure it's not over-engineered, but that's a personal question for me. I'm gonna reach out on. Pretty straightforward with everything else. Spillway information, a lot of these catchment basins and other civil we have, yeah, so going into the landscape, there's also other landscape elements that will be, that we can go through as well. Moving on then to the septic. So the leaching field again is, as shown and coordinated. Sounds like everything is working well in the current location. Again, it's going to be about 7 feet tall if you stand on Leverett Road. So it's going to have a fair height to it. This will be seeded. We can go over the planting plan in the landscape. This will be connected to the chambers up here, the septic tanks. We have 2 septic tanks. So we have the septic tank and then the pump chamber. We were struggling. There was a concerted coordination effort about where to locate these. And so I think they are shown more accurately in the civils, actually, so that manhole access is properly located. The tight tank, which is plumbing, not septic, needs to be in a location very close to this, unfortunately, and it has to do with elevation and drainage. So, we're hoping to move them upgrade, and that was problematic. So unfortunately, they will have to be where they are, and we are looking to conceal the access hatches within planting.
What is a tight tank?
So a tight tank is basically a reservoir that will need to be maintained, and you will need to have them serviced so that they're drained. It's basically catching water specifically from the mop sink, because that water is not allowed to go into the septic system. So the chemicals that you will, discharge in that mop sink, that you are not allowed to input into the septic system. So I haven't got any information on the maintenance requirements, like how often this reservoir will fill. I'm trying to remember. I had the dimensions of it. What you see here, it's actually cylindrical. I think there's details of that actually somewhere. So our plumbing engineer is actually still working on the exact size of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Can I interject real quick?
Sure.
So, Jeff, a lot of people at the lake have tight tanks. Basically, it's just a reservoir. When it fills up to a certain level, there's an alarm that goes off, and then you get it pumped out. It's when you can't have, at the lake, when you don't have the space for a drain field.
Okay.
Nice. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, so that's so we have the septic details here. We have some spacing plans for those elements, and then followed by details. Looks like we are going to have a candy cane element in that raised septic, so it's something I want to discuss. Initially we had the septic field in the southwest portion of the site, and early days we're talking about how we might be able to disguise it. Now it's really front and center, and I'm just wondering, we do have some plantings in front of this, so I think that would be the strategy to help conceal this. But it's always that component of a septic leaching field. Anybody who has one is familiar with it. It's required. So
The recommendation is paint it out black, flat black.
nice.
It's harder to see.
Make it go away. That's it.
That's
Nice.
what we did with ours.
Yeah, nice.
Camouflage spray paint works good too.
Yeah. Nice. All right, I'll talk to Fuss and O'Neill, and then Heritage, because obviously that they would have a lot of insight on that as well. So thanks for that, recommendation. So moving to landscape. So here we have our materials layout plan. Nothing much has changed here. Again, the turnaround is revised now to meet the setback requirements. We do have overflow parking here. One thing that slipped into this set that was new to me, and I'd like to potentially revise just on a cost basis, is that we have a very low wood guardrail now. I don't know if anybody picked up on that. It's something that I need to coordinate with Stimson. I'd like to do whatever is, most cost beneficial. We did a similar strategy at the turnaround here where we would just use reclaimed boulders. There's excavation going on the site. So whatever we find, we can, have the contractor or the site contractor lay out to help prevent vehicles from straying from the designated drive paths. Similarly for this parking, the overflow parking, my sense at looking at this is not going to be an insignificant amount of money as drawn. So it's not the same spec as what we had here originally. Originally here, we had large foundations. I quickly looked at the detail. So just wanted to mention that. That's kind of on my radar. We have taken away the concrete footpath here on the south side. We do have concrete at the main entry, the drop-off, handicap parking, and kind of this front portion. Bituminous pavement around the other walkways. And this is crushed stone at the bike racks, and then we have paving at these 3 locations. So again, I think it depends on where we come in on the cost estimate. I know there was talk about potentially, offsetting paving from donations, or we can reassess once the numbers come in. There's very easy areas and square footages that we can kind of subtract out of our estimate. The next 2 drawings are actually detail plans. So Stimson is looking at proposing a blend. We've used Hanover precast on other jobs, and with a blend, you get a very nice layout for paving. So that is the detail here at the 3 locations. So it's a good drawing to have to really hold the contractor to the installation and making sure they perform the layouts exactly as desired. The next, so I've touched on some of this. This is really the material plan, so specific to how all the materials are laid out. So again, we do have Cape Cod berm now all the way across to meet this concrete sidewalk. Again, it's needed for stormwater. We'd love to omit it, but so that is there. Then we do have concrete curbs across this. We have the 2 planting beds, and again, I'd mentioned the pathways previously.
Is this precast concrete or poured in place concrete curb?
I believe it is precast.
Okay.
Yep. I think that's what is it? RC, that's right. Raised curb. It'll be in the details. Yeah, I believe it is precast. Okay. Yep. The details show the various elevations as well of the precast curb. So we do need to come down to meet this ADA curb cut. So this will all be precast in there. Now we're moving on to planting plan. So this is had a lot of kind of back and forth and revision, and I think we've got this in a really good place now, with a very sensible strategy on the base bid for planting, and then the complete scope of planting to be carried out within the 3-year period. So the strategy here was to make sure that the whole site was finished in seeding or mulch, to ensure that we don't have any exposed soil, to make sure that this site for stormwater will perform as designed. Then the only plantings that are going to be made are the ones that are difficult to access after the site is finished. So when you go to the next plan, you can see that the small shrubs and plants and trees. The shrubs are easy to plant by hand, but any of the larger trees are easily accessible from either Leverett or the entry drive and parking lot. So the base bid has been pared down, and we're interested to see how that prices out. Again, kind of these inaccessible areas will be focused on for the base bid. And then the 3-year plan and completion of the planting plan is then shown in this plan. Also includes the small plants and shrubs around the building in the garden bed. Yeah, so that's kind of like a high level of that. Then we get into the details. Again, I won't stay with this. One detail that we still need to include is the drip strip that surrounds the building. There's the landscape architect would like to specify what that top gravel will be, and then civil owns the scope of assembly beneath the grade. So all the different layers of drainage to the drainage pipe. So that will be included for the 100%. Here we have all our various curb cuts, Cape Cod berm, boulders. So here you see the timber guardrail. It's definitely more simply detailed than the one that we had at the 50%, but again, I need to coordinate with them, and I'd like to admit it if we can. I'm hoping that setting boulders unifies the site plan for one, and will be adequate to help stop people straying from that parking, the overflow parking. Signage details, again, we're just owning scope here. We haven't really fully vetted fonts and what you even want the sign to say, but we are owning scope of work here. So we'd like to unify the signage font strategy with this sign as well. What's happening inside the building signage itself, and then this sign. Moving to structural, kind of skim through this. There's a lot of specificity here, starting with foundations, foundation walls, and we also have a footing wall that carries through the spine of the building. How the structural walls will be framed. So we have some tall spans of studs, and these are LVLs, I believe, to meet that height, because we have a near 20-foot central wall. And then the shear walls will be sheathed in ply, structural ply.
Right.
So some roof details. We now have deleted the rafter tail. So this they're calling this a glulam beam. So that rafter condition previously was protruding. Now that we have reduced our eave, we're able to simplify this. We do have backspan 2x4s, which will be required just to reinforce that overhang and make sure that we meet snow loads and occupancy so that you can stand on that. It's simple detail, but we think that the fussiness of, it's a result of where we ended up now with the new roof, and we see this as a cost saving actually. So again, going through, we need some reinforcing structural cords around the building footprint on the roof. We have the foundation plan, and it shows some wall framing above that. Depending on how we go with tile and whether we're going to include that, we would need to include a depression, a small depression, because it's thin set. I think we could get away with like 1.5, could be less than 1.5 inches actually. I'm trying to remember exactly, but I'll coordinate that. If we do get tile, we will need to represent a slab depression in that the entry lobby and circulation space.
Do we have any slab depressions for fin tube? One
Yeah,
time we
no,
talked
well,
about,
they're trenches,
yeah,
and it's not fin. Yeah, for the electrical heat source at the
But it was-
meeting room. So we have 3 trenches, and
are they on that drawing? I couldn't find them.
no, that still needs to be coordinated. They missed that, so we've got to include that.
Yeah,
But yes, we do need them. It requires a thickened slab edge to
Right.
allow for that depression. That's
Right.
right. Yep. We also, depending on where the tight tank goes, it may there may be a conflict of it being so close to this foundation wall. So I have asked that structural own currently an increased depth of this footing. If the footing is too high with the tight tank being adjacent, there's conflict between the two.
Yep.
So we may need to, so at least we own that currently. For the
So are you going to
75%
step the
plus.
footing down, or are you going to move the
That's
tank?
right. Well, I think the tank access hatch to the tank may end up in the pathway, in that adjacent concrete pathway. So we're reluctant to do that. It's a question we can pose to our cost estimator on that amount of concrete. Currently, we own step-down footing for the 75, and we'll see how that plays out.
How far down are you stepping?
Down,
Okay.
18 inches.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's not a lot. It's
Okay.
called a zone of influence. I
Right.
forget the term exactly. And
Yeah.
basically, I think the tight tank will there is some sort of pressure issue if they're too close together, and you need to drop that foundation further down so that you lower a zone of influence away from that tight tank.
Okay.
Yep. So moving on, this is the header framing plan. So here you see the shear walls and the LVLs required to bridge openings, reinforce sliding doors, the security gate. So that's depicting that structural information. That's kind of it's kind of like at the 9-foot datum or thereabouts. And then the next plan is the roof plan. So that describes the glue lamps and the upturned roof framing. And what we decided to do is, because we do not have the exposed rafter tails anymore, we thought it would be a cost-saving measure to revert back to 2x12 standard lumber to support this side of the roof.
Yep.
We're also going to LVLs, which is cheaper than glulam in this zone because you don't see any of it.
Okay.
So we're really interested to see that savings. You know, as you go through the stages of design, you're refining scope. So yeah, we're hoping that this will help, you know, bring costs down. So I think that was a smart choice for this, and we'll be interested to see how that plays out. Nothing really has changed other than structurally what I've described to you. So really the essence of the building is has remained the same for quite a while, other than this the roof rafters framing has changed. Some more structural details, and then we have elevations. I'm going to skip through them. So this is really for the contractors to use to frame correctly. Some more specifics on connections. This connection here was finessed quite a bit. This is at that main spine grid line 2, so that runs north to south in plan, holding up the roof ridge across here. And what we were hoping to do was center the roof ridge, this line, with the finished face of that wall, so that when you're at the north elevation and you're standing outside the building looking into children's, you read the jamb and kind of the roof ridge in line. So this was a bit of gymnastics, but Lemessurier were able to work that out, so that's great. And then, you know, other details about, we do have some steel tube that is required for window support. We owned some of that at 50%. I think there was 1 or 2 additional members with coordination with Pella, because we have ganged window systems because of wind loading. We did need some additional HSS steel tubes across window openings. So if you scrutinize some of these elevations in structural drawings, you'll see those. And so you're seeing, you know, attachment details to stud framing here. All right, now to architectural. Again, I'll just try and highlight changes, and not a lot has changed here, right? Other than the layout of this space, which everybody has seen and reviewed. There's a little bit of coordination in the storage room that still needs to happen. I would like to have all the building controls, fire alarm, mechanical on this small wall here. So that's kind of a coordination element. But in general, you know, nothing else has changed. Water service, restroom, as you've seen it, pretty straightforward. Moving on to the attic plan, we felt this is before I move on, we will include a slab plan. So that's another drawing that the architectural drawing set will own, and that really specifies exactly where we want the slab edge to be with relation to our architectural finishes. And if we go with this, you know, the trenches, obviously, and dropped slab if we need for the tile. So then moving up to the attic plan, we felt like this is a good drawing to have to really show these open spaces, you know, describe that teens and study has a sloped ceiling, what spaces are open to the decking. It also helps describe some of these dropped soffit conditions and what the wall types should be in those cases. The roof plan, nothing much has changed here. Again, we own the gutter at these two locations. We have a rain diverter at this location. And then we have two downspouts with a cricketed roof to drain to either side. PV is indicated here. And snow guards, we're going to own snow guards around the perimeter, not at the upturned roof, but yes, everywhere else. And we want to also make sure to have a gutter cover at these two gutter locations. Then we move into the restrooms. Pretty straightforward. We spec them to meet code and the requirements. We're missing a mirror here. So we already have that on our list. We've got to include that. We'll make sure the cost estimate includes that here for this additional restroom that we ended up including. Floor finishes. We owned resilient flooring, but I made it clear in the cost estimate that we wanted to add alternates so that we could potentially have tile throughout. And we're also pricing epoxy flooring for the restrooms if we were to go with linoleum. Other than that, we have linoleum throughout, a simple sealer in exposed concrete for the mechanical spaces. We have carpet in adults and the reading nook and the director's office. Everywhere else is resilient flooring. We have a carpet overlay in the children's. Then the reflected ceiling plan. These fixtures are pendants, which we have as an add alt for the cost estimate. So we're interested to see what that would come out as. So we can evaluate that with the cost estimate. Currently, again, the main track light fixture with the light heads and track system is showing additional tracks to the fixtures mounted to them. So I finally got explanation from Lamb, our lighting consultant. So they're showing fixtures on one side of the structural bay on these tracks and not on this side, but they actually need to locate one of these fixtures on each side. So 3 need to go over here and 3 need to go in here. And that is a result of the sloping ceiling and the fact that these fixtures need to point down against that slope. So they need to be directed away from this sloping rafter to which they're mounted on. They're worried about scalping and not being able to supply effective lighting if they just used one side. The intent for all of this is that the fixtures are in line with the bottom of structure. If we were to mount on the rafters, we feel like that's very distracting, and we're trying to keep it fairly clean to pull them up. So Lamb says that the tracks themselves are fairly inexpensive. So I think what's misleading here is that they're representing these fixtures on one side, justified to one side, and not alternating on each. They explain that what they want to do is when they're being installed, they actually go on site with the lighting installer, with the electrician, and they will actually go through each space and decide, I need the light over here, I need it over here, move it a little bit down on this track. It's got to be angled a little bit this way. And so there's a coordination effort about getting the light heads on the tracks where they want them. So it's kind of a placeholder for scope. And then that final layout of lights would be done in field when it's being installed. but we own the fixture heads we need. So there wouldn't be an increase down the line. Stephen.
Yes, so am I understanding that the tracks are going to be set on the side of the glue lamb up high enough so that the fixtures kind of disappear, if you will?
Yes.
So will they, if we have things displayed on the wall, are those tracks going to be able to illuminate the wall? The
Yes.
fixtures on those?
Yes.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
So the intent again is to make sure this wall is illuminated. These side wall, the side walls on either side of the screen, and
Right.
then also this wall here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. So, and that's also going to be wired in a way that can be controlled independently, right? So you have zoning that'll be zoned in the same way as I described. So you can specifically control the track heads or the fixture heads in those zones. In the other rooms where we don't have ceilings, we have suspended linears, pretty simple, just to, provide the lighting required. At the front entry, we have, we're going to have fixtures mounted to the decking, but in between these two rafters. So that'll be a nice resolution to installing the fixtures and providing light out here. Then we have pretty simple fixtures mounted in acoustic ceiling tile. We have hard gypsum board for the ceilings in the restrooms. That's pretty common practice. Before I move on, another thing that we're going to coordinate is a few access panels. We don't need them for most of the building because ACT panels can be lifted, but I do believe we will locate one in the vestibule and the restroom. I think we need one in each of these restrooms, depending on wiring to get to the storage room. So that's a coordination effort is currently underway. And then we have suspended fixtures in crafts, children's, and the study. We also have wall-mounted linear fixtures on an offset arm to illuminate stacks at the walls. Heather?
Hello, could you go back to the circulation desk area?
Sure. Yeah.
So those, I see, looks like 4 littler lights and then those 3 larger circles with little dots in the middle. Are those additional fixtures?
They are, yeah. Sorry, I glazed over those. They are
Okay.
suspended fixtures to illuminate the circulation desk.
Okay, and are those
So-
going to be spaced sufficiently to cover the whole desk? I've had a lot of circulation desks where there's dark spots and illumination issues, so I'm just sensitive to this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I'll make a point to make sure Lamb is providing sufficient foot candles at that surface.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. We also have, and kind of while we're in this area, we have a wall grazing linear recess in the ACT, and that's for the browsing and library of things over here. So that's the RCP in a nutshell. We're also describing finishes here, right? So acoustic ceiling tile throughout, open decking, as you see in the major spaces, and then some of these smaller spaces doesn't have a ceiling, so it's open to decking, and the restrooms have hardship. Building elevations, again, nothing has really changed here, bar we've tried to simplify things a little bit here with the rafter tail. So we did have vertical wood and horizontal wood component at the eave condition. So now we have a detail where the slate actually goes all the way up to the underside of decking, and the vertical boards go all the way up to the underside of the upturned roof, and similarly at the staff workroom. We've simplified that detail. So we're hoping to see some savings there in general. It's a less fussy detail at the roof eave. Other than that, material choices are the same. Alaskan yellow cedar with a pre-stain, a pre-aging stain applied to it. So you don't see, it's uniform aging over time, because the roof eave will, create a shadow line. And so you might have a lighter color above and a grayer. The graying out of the Alaskan yellow cedar will happen faster in the more exposed areas. The same slate, the intent here is to use a light gray color for the metal trim that will tie in with the aluminum clad window frame. So you kind of get a uniformity there. Then we go into building sections. I'm not going to really focus on these. These are really a keying drawing. So from here, you can reference where we pull out from the building section, you go to the wall section, and from the wall section, you then go to the specific detail section. So again, we have a bunch of sections through the building in one orientation, and then we do the same in the opposite direction. And again, it's a keying reference. I did want to highlight again, we do not have the perforated drywall gypsum board for the acoustic treatment here. We have a fabric wrapped surface mounted acoustic panel. So again, we're interested to see the savings there for that. We have a linear uplight. That was another lighting component in the RCP I did not explain before. Again, the strategy is, sorry, I'm zooming around here. Let's go to the meeting room. So the intent here is to have that indirect linear uplight, and that is in all the main spaces, adults, children's, and the meeting. There's an indirect light strategy that lights the ceiling and bounces light in, throughout the space that way. And then above that, we're going to have supply air into the space. So it's not shown in this section specifically, but we do have a detailed where we have supply air, the plenum, and the linear grille is above that. And then above that, we're going to have the acoustic panel. So we do describe some of that in these sections. Then we get into the wall section specifically. Where we need them. What are all the unique connections of different materials? These exterior wall sections, again, they break down where all these connections are, and then you can go to those specifically to get all of that information. I'm going to kind of just speed through these. I'm happy to answer questions. Specifically here at Children's, we have the shelving niche. So we have an LVL to help support that overhead niche. We also have a HSS steel to support this window system above for the clear story. We show shades as well. So we're going to have all manual shades. So one thing that we do need to coordinate in this one specific area is how that is going to be done manually. So that is still a coordination effort. But on all west and east windows, we own manual shades.
So where do I find dimensions for a lot of this stuff? I go to the bigger details and they're not dimensioned either. as an example, lower right corner detail.
Yes.
I would have thought you'd at least give a dimension to, well, something.
Yes, yes. So that's that we will own some dimensions, but the plan will dictate a lot of that. And for instance, like the shade pocket, we specify the shade, and yes, there are some critical dimension strings, which is, you know, as a result of the 75%, we still got to kind of do our due diligence and get that stuff in. So,
Okay.
Yep.
While we're here, could you move up a little bit on that detail? There you go.
Yep.
And this kind of relates to the spec. All that metal work that's sitting at the edge of the roof.
Yep. This here.
When I read through the specs,
Yep.
it implies that's Sarnaclad. But then when I look at another section of the specs, it's not Sarnaclad, it's bent aluminum. So just go back to your specs and make sure everybody's understanding of who owns what.
Yes, no, that's a good point, and that there is a concerted effort to do that specifically for that, because we have our own spec writer,
Yep.
and then we have Garland, who's helping specifically with this spec, and so there's, you know, we need between 75 and 100, just a last concerted effort to make sure that those two spec sections are talking to each other correctly. So
Correct.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So that's, yeah, so that's kind of how the layout of the drawing set works. Keying in the wall section to the specific detail. And we have SGH reviewing this detail. We're still waiting to hear back from them.
Good,
So
because I don't understand that detail. Good.
Yeah, so this detail here was about making the standing seam, the metal standing seam roof, independent of the PVC roof
Right.
meeting it. And so we have flashing that stops at this location, and then we have the TPO that comes up to this location, and with kind of an integrated connection detail with an exposed kind of sealant bead across that.
Why can't the TPO go up under the metal?
The motivation here was so that you do not need to disturb the standing seam metal roof at all.
Yeah, but my point is, when it comes time to re-roof, they'll
Yeah.
slice it there, and then they can patch the new TPO into just the old piece of TPO. I would still provide your fancy dancy detail, but a little belt and suspenders by taking the TPO further up under the metal.
Right.
Talk
So,
it over with
yeah,
SGH.
as I know, I understand what you're saying there. The way I understand it is that so the motivation was around warranty. And so we're going to have a 40-year warranty for the standing metal seam and a 30-year, which is maximum for this PVC. So if you're just cutting and rebonding to existing 30-year-old material, I don't know if that voids your 30-year warranty. That's my understanding of it, right? So yes, the superior detail is to have the PVC go all the way under the standing metal seam roof. That's how you would detail it. If you were not considering these alternating warranties, but because the standing seam has PV on it, the PV would have to come off, the metal roof would have to come off when it's time to then replace this.
No, I'm just saying, well, okay.
You know what I mean?
I think there's a way around it, but
yeah, my
Also-
thought was that, can you get under this metal seam roof with it still in place? But I don't think you can come up high enough.
also your specs don't call for a 30-year warranty, it's a 20-year. So double check that
Yeah, I will.
for the TPO.
Yep.
So double
Okay.
check that.
Great, thanks. I will. Yep.
Okay,
Stephen?
Well, going along with what Jeff talked about, if you kept that additional metal piece that is starts under the metal roof,
Yeah.
that
This
comes
one.
down to where your essentially joint is
Yep.
with the TPO. If you had a piece of TPO under that
Mhm.
went further up the metal roof,
Yep.
then you would never replace it. I mean, it's not subject to any weather. And it seems like it would be, and I think Jeff and I talked about this a little bit, it would be like another line of defense, if you will.
Hmm.
And then when you need to replace the TPO, you cut, that could even be two separate pieces. So you're just taking up, what runs down into the upturned roof. You're never replacing the other piece.
I understand. So you're basically double layering there, so you have something to tie back into it, the 30-year replacement.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good point, and I'll ask that specifically. If the new warranty, right, that new replacement roof will then come with its own 30-year, if that's allowed, right, on that connection.
Now, as I'm looking at the detail raised up, if you come up to where that bead of sealant is, okay, and then you look at the metal part that's under the standing seam metal, I see a way that if you sort of start on the top of the standing seam metal and you come down towards the sealant, if something backs up, what keeps, that as a totally watertight joint? Because there's this, where your thin, I'll say dimensional line is.
Yep.
Right where your cursor is.
Yep. This is the weak point. You're saying,
Yeah,
right?
why doesn't that fold back over and interlock? But
I thought
still,
that
you can
was-
see, the right freeze thaw kind of thing. Maybe water somehow a little bit gets up, and I think that's part of the reason why it seems to make sense to then have additional TPO under all that goes further up the roof in case something like that happens.
Right. Yeah, and again, we do have multiple layers of defense, right? This is also waterproofing down here.
Yeah, bullpucky. Okay.
But
well, let me just ask. So when it says roof membrane, is that something like a ice and water shield material?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that's under the protection board. Am I reading the detail right?
It's on the protection board.
Yeah, that's on top.
It's on top.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes more sense. When I try to find where the arrow point goes to, sometimes it's a little hard.
Oh, right. Yeah. I see down here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So that same detail, can you blow it up again? What are all these extra thin lines I see further behind the detail? Or kind of where Stephen was pointing, what is that vertical line there? What's
this here?
What's all that stuff?
Yeah, so
That's the standing seam, Jeff.
It is, but it should actually terminate here.
Yeah, that's what's
Right.
confusing me.
Yeah. That's right.
What's it doing way out there?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. That's the model element of the roof needs to be pulled back to match this detail.
Right. Yeah.
So we generate all our drawings based off a 3D model. And
you need to learn how to use a pencil.
Yes. Back in I did once.
You need to go back to the old days.
I did drafting. I remember that. Back in the day. Back in
the
Australia,
days.
actually. Yeah. It's a good skill to have.
When I started, we used Mylar.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's great.
One last thing, Dominic.
Yeah, sure.
On A 6.02 and A 6.05, if you haven't picked it up already, you're still showing 7 inches of roof insulation, not 5.
Yes, that's right. That's Very good point. We
Yep.
did catch that, and we've still got to review that. That's
Okay.
correct. It is drawn at 5, just to clarify. So dimensionally, we have it. We've got to chase the notes.
And double check some of your details. You're still calling out for I call it the burnt wood or the Akara wood or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Akoya. That's
Akoya,
right.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Nice. So, let's see here. Just to kind of see to kind of peruse if there's anything else you haven't seen. We would like to recess the shades in this study room
Mhm.
and the teams room. This needs to drop down a little bit so that it's actually in line.
Right.
So that's going to be flush here.
Yep.
We have louvered air intake details. So there's 2 locations. I'll cover that when we go to the mechanicals. So for our mechanical system, we have intake air louver above the director's window, and then we have exhaust that's at the water service room. So we detail that. This was an attempt to detail the heat source at the children's window, but we're now going with trench throughout.
Okay.
This fin tube is a hot water or steam system, and we don't have that. We don't want to pipe hot water and kind of create a whole new system around this. So we're going to go with electric, which will be trenched in here. So
Okay.
that's going to be revised. Yeah. We included the thickening of insulation at the vestibule. So now we have ample insulation. We are still working through, we have 3 vent pipe penetrations through the roof. We're revising this detail to adequately seal, to have an adequate boot around the penetration and the pipe, because the standing seam roof is undulating. It's not a flat surface. So
Right.
just to take note of that, we're still working through that detail as well.
Okay.
There are 3 rafter penetrations actually at the lobby exit. So that is one location where we already have the glue lam, and we still own this penetration.
Okay.
So we needed to incorporate that section there. Moving to the plan sections, we show, specificity about how that gets sealed correctly as well. Again, the slate is now going to be terminated up against the roof eave, and so we have a aluminum cover that's going to hide that top course of nail heads. So the
Can I ask a
intent,
question about that detail?
yeah,
Can you go back up to the bent metal above it? So is this one piece of metal, 2 pieces of metal, and where's the cleats?
yeah. So this is one piece of metal
Got it.
that acts as a cleat for this
Got it.
piece, which is then we need to incorporate. This is a cleat for this piece.
Okay.
We
Where's the
need a
cleat?
cleat down here.
Yeah, you need a cleat down by the bottom.
That's right.
That's my point. Okay.
Yep. So we
So,
need
so then it's
we
2 pieces
we
of
can
metal?
omit this cleat and put it down here, basically, because
Okay.
it's turning.
All right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep. Yeah, so the slate shingle coursing will start at grade and work its way up to the roof. And they pilot hole the nail holes, and then they're simply nailed in. and that top course, we want to conceal that nail.
Dominic?
Um,
Yeah, it's Roger. Can we go back to the edge detail there? Are there going to be horizontal joints that need to have folded seams or such on these bent metal pieces?
Horizontal seams. So you're talking in elevation?
Yeah, as you look at in the length of these, what's the length of these pieces going to be, and
Right,
will there
right.
be joints where you need an overlap and expansion
Yes,
joints
there
and
will.
such slices?
Yeah, we tend not to detail them in the elevation. But we do have a comprehensive, well, I'm trying to think. We have through-wall flashing, so we have specific details about how through-wall flashing joints need to be made. These, I think, are simply overlapped.
Oh my God.
What do you mean the overlap? What do you mean by that?
So they come in standard lengths of, right, if you're looking in elevation, this one piece is not going to be able to run 150. Well, there's no roof that runs that long, but whatever the length is, I forget the standard length is. My sense is they could break that up.
Like 12-foot segments.
Yeah, right. And what I guess Roger's asking, is there a detail to capture the overlap requirement?
Yeah, I think Roger's asking a good question. Because
Yeah,
we just had this problem at the elementary school.
where they didn't sufficiently overlap, and now.
Well, also, they ended up pop roofing every section together, and it found its own expansion joint and created it.
Yeah.
In not a good way.
Yep.
Oh my God.
This is one of those details that I think with the shops, once they come in, you can kind of hone that. But I agree, we should roll that into our set prior to that. So. I've never had that be an issue on other jobs where we detailed these, but
Yeah, we'll make your day.
it's good to own this stuff prior, and then there's no questions after.
Yeah, that way Stephen won't get all over you.
Keeping me honest. Yeah, so thanks, Roger. I'll look into that and make sure we include that in the set as well. Then the plan sections, again, detailing, for instance, there's the Alaskan yellow cedar vertical boards. We want to own a vertical corner trim. This just allows that the vertical corner to be finished well. And so if there's any expansion contraction on these side boards, you kind of own a better detail at that corner. Yeah, standard connections throughout.
Can you go back a sheet?
Yeah.
No, go back to a section. Well,
The wall section.
keep going. One more. Yeah, let's see. What I want to do is see the bottom of the wall. What sheet would
Bottom.
have
Oh,
that?
at the slab.
Well, you've got some blocking near the slab, but I don't understand how you're supporting the blocking.
The slab.
Okay, this detail on the right.
Yep.
Blow up that. So you've got your slate on the outside.
Yep.
Which is then sitting on. I touched the freaking screen and it got small.
Oh, you want, oh, I see.
I think it's me. I'm using my wife's computer and I don't know how to use it.
Do you want me to zoom in?
Yeah,
So the start to finish assembly of the slate from
Wow.
so we have a hat channel in here.
okay, but there's a piece of wood at the very bottom that's
This one.
horizontal.
Yep.
What's it attached to?
So I think this should be attached to the hat channel. So this hat channel needs to come down and pick it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Like this. And then it can sit on top the way these are. Let's see. Yeah, so kind of standard connections. There's a few connections that we still need to include, like 90-degree slate, slate to slate. So similar to this wood detail, what are we doing at the slate? It's going to be similar to this. We've done it on previous jobs where we have this like a heavy gauge brake metal, and that gets installed on the 2x, and it allows the slate to kind of terminate. This is a connection at the building notch where this is a children's room in here where we have slate, and then we go to the cedar. So it's a way of creating a nice clean edge. So we need to do the same. Here's that condition. Slate to slate. I also wanted to mention that we have an offset fin. So because we have expansive window assemblies, Pella is not recommending that the fin be clipped into the actual mullion, and that it is independent. And so that way you can control and you get a more rigid fin at the larger lengths of window assemblies. So we use that throughout so that you have that same relationship. The next sheet here is an assembly sequencing diagram, and it's to explain what we need to do to seal the structural tongue and groove decking. So the exterior wall framing and sheathing goes up to decking and is then wrapped in AVB, in water vapor barrier. And that then turns up against the decking. The decking has tongue and groove gaps, and that needs to be filled with butyl sealant, which then needs to meet the roof water vapor barrier as well. So you can see here in the sequencing, we explain that after framing, the decking needs to stop at that exterior wall. You need to apply the butyl sealant at that location and then continue the assembly. Then comes the structural sheathing, which goes on top before the first layer of AVB, and that kind of laps down on the decking board. Then the next sheathing layer goes on with the AVB on top of that, and that basically explains to the contractor how that connection is made. We also have perpendicular conditions where the decking is perpendicular to the exterior wall that's on the south and the north exterior walls, and we explain that we need butyl sealant between each board at that location. That's to prevent airflow coming into the building. Makes for more efficient treatment of air and more efficient use of your mechanical equipment. Interior elevations, I'll kind of like skim through them. the meeting room, again, we have the acoustic tiles, the fabric wrapped acoustic panels applied to the walls. This elevation needs to be revised so that it is cut right at that wall, because you're seeing the section cut to produce this elevation is showing this little lower, when really the acoustic panel is offset from that structure. Stephen, I see your hand up.
Yeah, real quick thing on the in the meeting room, I see the picture rail.
Yeah.
I would suggest including that on the north wall, each side of the large pocket door, and then on the east side left of the kitchen. You know, just depending on what kind of items are being displayed, those spaces, even though small, would be useful.
Sure. So really it's on every wall around, other than the
Yes.
screen. Yep.
Yes,
Great.
thank you.
Yep. Everything's pretty straightforward. I know we've gone through the staff workroom and the library of things wall. Everything else is pretty straightforward. Then we have interior details. This is our trench heating supply for the those 3 locations. So we need to coordinate this with structural, just to make sure that the slab incorporates this trench. We're showing connections again of the interior glazing. So this is a condition at the teens room, where we have the circulation space outboard. We have the glazing connection to framing, and then the upturned ACT. We're showing sections of the air supply at a few different locations. So we have linear diffusers, and we're showing the relationship of that through the framing, various elements, and then the acoustic panel above. We're still in progress of supplying all the details of the sliding doors. This is between adults and children's, the clear story condition above. We have fixed glazing to create an acoustical barrier between adults and children. So if you're standing in the adults' room and you're looking to children's, above that is this overhead glazing. So we're showing sections through that, how that meets the jam elements. We've incorporated details of that system, the interior glazing and the doors. We have a sliding door at the study room. And then we show a full page of our security screen. So this is the after hours security screen. Again, we're showing all the details there for that. Double track, so that you can have a smaller pocket to stow away the security screen, the mesh fence. Sliding door details are also on this sheet. Again, just working through all the details, make sure we have the scope covered. Kitchenette, we've gone over in previous meetings, so not much has changed here. Just some final revisions and coordination required here. Here we go, my mouse is dying, nice. The microwave will need its own support here, so we need that as well. So that'll still be incorporated here. Oops, I've got to use my trackpad. My Zoom is going to be horrible. Howard, no, it doesn't like that. Again, all this millwork we've gone over. I'll fly through this. Some details of shelving between the staff workroom and the circ desk. Some wall assembly details. There'll be some final coordination there. Make sure that all the scope is as required. Some finish schedules.
I think there's water production.
Okay. So we're nearing the end of the architectural. Then we have window assemblies.
Step away, but when we get to, so at 3:50.
And some more schedules. Window details. Signage. So we started to incorporate some scope. There's some coordination required here with Marianne and just confirming where we have signage. Again, we're including that here. Before I go on, I might actually get my spare mouse real quick. Do you mind? Give me like 1 minute. It'll just be easier for everybody if I can actually operate this thing properly. Hang on.
Dominic, I have something about the bathroom signs. Oh, not back yet.
He needs his ears.
Yeah. For the bathroom signs, could they not be gendered? I think the trend is to go to just showing like a toilet or like what's in the facility instead of showing this, because even having the picture of the man and the woman is not inclusive.
You're muted, Dominic.
Sorry about that. Yes, we will. And sorry, you might have seen I was busy taking a note. I absolutely agree. We can change that icon for a gender neutral restroom.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry for the short delay there. Of course, my mouse died. So yeah, we are working through the signage schedule and making sure that we have that. So it's still a work in progress. There are a few wayfinding signs. Because it's a small building, there's not a lot of requirement to for wayfinding signage. But for instance, the major spaces will have the meeting room will have its own sign. All of the main public spaces will have their own signs for wayfinding. we decided to incorporate a wayfinding signage at the entry from the lobby. Okay. So the meeting room, for instance, will have its own sign. So when you enter through the vestibule to the left here and you look at the meeting room, it'll have its own sign there. When you turn to the right, you will then look at browsing in the library of things is to your left here. The restrooms are to your right if you go through this opening. And so we wanted to just indicate, what spaces you can get to further ahead. So the wayfinding signage is explaining that, which is different to code related signage. And so for the code signage, each space needs its own sign next to the entry door, needs to have Braille, room number. And so we're capturing that scope here. So we incorporate some plans on those locations. We will be, and this is the furniture, the FF&E plan, which is really, it's not necessarily a contractor document, but it's more of a coordination plan. And so we include that as well. Moving on then to mechanical, I'm going to go straight to kind of the larger scale plans for MEP. And happy to answer, more questions about specificity again. But so most of the equipment is going to be held in that plenum space or the attic space, let's say, in the center of the building, above the circulation area. And all of this equipment will be hung, and all the access and maintenance access requirements for this equipment is being coordinated around the acoustic ceiling tiles. So we are making sure that you can get to filters and things like that easily from the acoustic by simply removing acoustic ceiling tiles. We have intake air above the director's office, exhaust air outside above the water service room, the ERVs in these large two in the middle. So supply air is throughout the building is really going to be across the plenum space on this side of the building. So for the meeting room, the supply air will be at this side, and through linear diffuser is going to serve the room that way. We have supply air for the lobby itself coming in from overhead linear over here. I'm still trying to work out exactly the need for this air supply on this side, because I know we have, again, linear supply on this wall for both adults and children's. Return air is going to be in the open space in the reading nook through a panel in the ACT. And similarly in children's, we have return air in these open spaces below. And these other small spaces like the study has supply and return, within it. Supply will be near the windows. And director's office, the same. Teens, the same. So all these independent spaces have their own supply and return. I think the only AC we have is in the water service room. So that's specific. It's one of those wall-mounted air conditioning units at the water service and the electrical room here.
Question?
Yeah, sure.
So when I look at the meeting room, the air handling unit itself is sitting pretty far back downstream.
Yes.
I'm concerned about, so that's going to take a lot of fan power. is it gonna transfer noise into that meeting room?
Yeah. We
'Cause
have our
you gotta
acoustical.
throw the air a long ways across that
Yeah,
room.
right. Yeah. Our acoustical consultant is reviewing the 75%. So we're doing a last minute, this now incorporates a lot of detail that the acoustical consultant is reviewing. So we do have another coordination effort with them and mechanical engineers. So that's a good question. I'll bring it up with them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then we have.
Excuse me, Dominic.
Yeah, sure.
Couple questions. In the spaces, the main spaces like the meeting room, the adults, and the children's, are there any returns high up on the wall?
No. So the returns will all be at 9 foot in the ACT panels. So the reading nook is going to have the return. So supply will be across that linear, which is
So
like
I guess
9.
my question then is,
Yeah.
so in the summer, if you're doing some cooling, you're not taking the heat from those spaces.
Because of the convection currents, heat wanting to go up. You're saying
Right.
the heat at the very top here, how is that being
Returned?
Returned? Yeah. I'll ask that question. I'm sure that there is some sort of strategy with airflow.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Why do you want to return that heat? I want to leave it up there.
Potentially.
Well, if you're, if you're cooling, you want to take the warm air back to be recooled.
Not really. You just want to cool the people zone, which is from 9 foot down.
That could be it. But let me get their input on that. So that's, and then again, we have heat from the trench at, these larger window areas. Then we have kind of specific mechanical equipment details, schedules. Next is electrical. So this is the electrical site plan. Again, we've got the duct bank, telecom, and electrical coming in. We're going to revise the telecom turning to the director's office. Electrical goes to transformer and then into the electrical room. We are showing the concrete pad here for future energy storage. So we do have it in electrical, but we need to coordinate with civil. And then we have parking lot light poles shown in their plan. And we have bollards.
Is there a pole box at each one of these light poles?
Yes, there
Okay.
there will need to be, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So HH is the handholds.
Right.
I have an outstanding question with them on the electrical duct one. There doesn't seem to be a handhold anywhere there along
Yeah, I
the
think
length.
there needs to be one at least in the middle.
Yeah, you would think so. So
Yeah.
I have that outstanding.
Yeah.
One scope that's coming to mind is security cameras. So that's another thing that I want to make sure, because I know we wanted to mount one on a pole in the parking lot. So I've got to make sure that we've got that. There was also a last minute coordination effort with Marianne and technology with this plan. So that didn't make it into the 75%. I think we reduced some of the scope. So we'll make sure that we pull that out for the cost estimate. But generally, you know, the floor boxes and outlets has all been coordinated with Marianne and the library team. And moving on to the lighting plan, I did mention again that the way this is being represented, in actuality, these track heads are going to, you know, half of the track heads are going to be mounted on the other side. So this is all going to be, we need those tracks to afford us the ability to light properly. And then schedules, moving on to the fire alarm. I want to review this. This is the first time I see this from, you know, our coordination effort. So I just want to get a good sense of what we have here from our engineers, and I'll get back to you. My understanding is that we have a fairly simple fire alarm, just to meet the fire chief's request.
These are the horn strobes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're going to have control panel in the storage room. Then on to plumbing. I'll go straight to the plumbing plans. So really the added scope here was for the additional restroom. We also incorporated a new spigot to the north side. This water line is going to be run in the plenum space overhead to that location. We have one spigot here and here. We have the water room laid out. So again, once the well drilling, you know, once we get the final water testing information, we can lock this in.
Hopefully you can get a person in there.
Yes. Then PV is the last. We have our output per year, which meets the demand of the systems that we have in the building. There's a lot of information here about layout, and then all the technical infrastructure required for it. This plan is showing some penetrations and then the wiring. There is a section showing this connection to this system on this side. So there will be an exposed conduit line running from the electrical room through the meeting room structural bay there. It's going to, it'll be, you know, mounted on the deck. So it'll be fairly inconspicuous. But, and then, you know, real specifics on the wiring at each of the panels. This is the section showing the supply to those systems. So this will be a conduit that we will expose in the meeting room. Then we have layouts and attachments to the standing seam roof. So how that all lays out. Specific attachment to our roof system. So we're calling out the garland roof, the seam profile. So this works exactly to the roof that we're specifying. And then, so this is a section detail showing the roof, the connection to the roof, and the penetration through the roof. We've got in our architecturals, we're going to own the waterproofing for this. And then panel layouts in the electrical room. Some connection details, hanging details, and then also the metering on the exterior. We're trying to get all our electrical metering on the south elevation of the plan. And we're hoping we can do so. We're yet to see if we can get the generator hookup, the roll-up generator hookup, all the metering and electrical cabinets on this side. We are tight for space because we have the condensing units out here as well, kind of holding to that line right here. We'd like to not mount anything on this side. So that's another coordination effort. That's really the drawings. Jeff, I know you had some spec questions, one of which was the you had mentioned the metal panel. Make sure that we have the correct specs between our metal.
Yeah, who owns it? Yeah,
Yep.
right. Yeah. Section 071100 by 2 minutes damp proofing. And I don't
Yep.
know the answer to this, but do we need by 2 minutes damp proofing if we're slab on grade?
I think we do, yeah. For it's either for the finished materials on the slab. I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. And then section 072100 thermal insulation.
Yeah.
You didn't seem to, they didn't pick up the rigid insulation on the outside of the building. They got the rigid under the slab.
But not on the side.
Right.
Okay, I'll double check that.
Okay. And then 074600 slate siding.
Yeah.
The spec is like less than a page long. And
Yeah,
it
we
needs a
need.
lot, it needs a lot more meat.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We're working with Vermont Structural Slate on that, so we'll just get that. Yep.
Right. Okay. 07400. The thermoplastic roofing. You're specifying an electrical breach detection system. And I'm kind of wondering why we need that, especially under such a little bitty piece of roof.
Yep.
Those are expensive systems and they're a pain to deal with.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, 078-100. You have steel fireproofing. Where are we fireproofing?
Yeah, that's going to be a placeholder. I don't think we need that.
Okay.
We do have steel on the job, but it's not in a rated room.
Yeah.
So that's that is not required.
Okay. There's a spec section 081214 called trimless door frame. What is that? And where is it? It's different from your hollow metal spec.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's because I think we had a note somewhere for the meeting room, electrical and storage rooms to go trimless there. If we were going to do the gallery art, to kind of maximize your hanging space there. But my sense is that spec for that door, and we don't own it in our door schedule, it's expensive and there's no need. So I'm just going to pull it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Then you got a spec 096400 wood flooring.
Yep, that doesn't need to be in there.
Okay, right. And then the last is 108211 coiled wire gate. And where's that?
Yep. So that is our security screen. So we have,
Okay.
there's different systems, and the one that we've used previously and we really like is it's an aluminum coiled system. It's like a mesh, and it allows for you can have much smaller pocket space for that to stow away. It's fastened with a foot bolt system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's
So
the
that would be for that.
Okay, it's the nomenclature that was kind of throwing me off.
Yeah, sure.
That was going to be my guess, but I've
Yeah.
never heard of it termed that way.
Yeah, it is a bit unusual, actually. You're right. Instead of kind of more specific to the fact that it's security gate.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
usually under the security spec.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. That was it.
Nice. Thanks, Jeff. You've kind of got to jump on what I still need to do. Sorry for not being more prepared on the spec specifically. I'll reach out to you if I've written all this down. So if I have any other questions on your questions, I'll follow up. So I'll reach out to you.
Okay.
So yeah.
Fine. Thank you.
Nice. So looking ahead, so from today, we have 4 weeks for the 100%. We're looking to get the cost estimate back next week on Friday. And then we want to communicate that with you as soon as we have it in hand and we have like a reasonable understanding of where we stand. What will still need to happen on our end is, a review period with our cost estimated and make sure that the scope is clarified, and substantiated. There's one other kind of coordination meeting with the committee that I'd like to do, and that's interior finishes. And it's something that we can include other than, I think, the depressed slab for tile. That's the only real coordination effort with our consultant. Otherwise, it can be added and subtracted fairly quickly. But I kind of want to be proactive and maybe meet with a group when we can with interior finishes and just review both epoxy and tile and resilient in those spaces where we have add alternates. And then, of course, the potential selections for resilient flooring in other spaces, carpet choices in the adults' room. So it's something, I don't know if, I know Marianne's kind of on site and it sounds like she has a lot going on with the water well. I don't know if this forum is a good coordination, whether we set a day when we could meet. That's kind of the next step for the committee, for me and the committee. So maybe I coordinate through Marianne.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So so you're talking about the full library building committee. And of course they're all, everybody will have opinions about the finishes, so we should have it be.
Yeah.
So there's a meeting scheduled on April 10th, and that's to review the cost estimate.
Yeah.
Do you want it before that or after that?
Mm-hmm. I think before that.
Okay. So I will email everybody when I'm, at a full computer and come up with a couple of dates. I know we had kind of a hard time coming up with April 10th as a date that everybody could meet. But I'll throw it out there and we'll see what we could it be
that day?
April 11th? Or could that be a really long meeting? I mean, I don't need a longer meeting on April 10th. Are you free the 11th?
During the day, I'd like this to be in person, or obviously I'm
Oh,
sharing
okay.
actual materials, so
Okay.
I'd like to meet
Alrighty.
you in person. So that
Okay.
evening I'm not, so it would be
Okay.
difficult for me.
All
I
right.
could.
Let me email the committee and you,
Yeah,
and because it's going to be too hard to try and do this by.
sure.
Um, so let's do that. So the well driller is approaching me, so I'm going to step away. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Um,
Great.
Dominic,
Yeah, sure.
one of the things just struck me. Was there spec sections in your specs about coordinating with the commissioning agent and making sure everybody plays well? I got so freaking tired of that where
Yeah.
the contractor, the GC
Yeah.
would say, I don't have to coordinate with these people and I want an extra for it.
Yeah, that's a good question. Roger, maybe I reach out to Neil about that and make sure that the commission, because I know the commissioning agent, we should coordinate on what we should own with your commissioning agent, because we have, and I'm blanking on their name, we already have them engaged. So that would be a good question. I agree with you that commissioning is always difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always that painful process at the very end when you'd hoped, you're already open, that everything
Right.
is good, and then you've got to go through that.
And the finger pointing starts.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, the hope is that with a commissioning agent engaged early on, throughout construction, they're kind of doing their checklists prior to the end of the job, in a sense, right? So they already have a presence.
Yeah, but checklists are as good as the paper they're printed on.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting to mechanical equipment after everything's closed in that's always tough too. Yeah, it's a good question. I'll coordinate with Neil and see what
Okay.
his take is on that.
Yeah, usually there's a section in Division 1000,
Yeah.
or in the old days we used to call it Division 1000.
Nice. No, so that was everything I had for you. But please feel free to reach out with questions, as you may be digesting more of the spec or the drawings. And
how do we do that? How do we contact you?
Through Marianne, I guess, if you don't have you don't have my email?
No.
It's dominic@odenzello.com.
Okay.
Yep.
When you have sent us drawings in the past, your email address would be part of that.
Yeah.
Because I've responded to you a few times.
That's right. Yeah. Feel free, though, to reach out to me if you have specific questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And yeah, so a bunch of coordination still going on. It's going to be a busy 4 weeks for us. Looking forward to showing you finished samples. We'll review those. And so we have that meeting on the 10th set. As soon as I get information about pricing, the cost estimate, I'll reach out to you. And that's it for me. If there's
Okay, get
anything
some
else from
sleep over the next 4 weeks.
Again, these bags, I'm really, I'm looking after the bags under my eyes, getting bigger and bigger.
Yep, I remember the days.
Is there anything else from anybody?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you very much. And they're a nice set of drawings, by the way.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Dominic.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Have a good weekend. We'll
You
be in
too.
touch.
Thanks, take care.